Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of the We Talk Chelsea podcast. It's a shock because Temba literally joined as that countdown happened, so we hadn't had an opportunity to speak to Temba just yet. He's on Temba time, and we love him for it. Welcome to another episode, and thank you hello to viewers watching us on TKS TV. Thank you very much, appreciate it. If you want to get involved with the chat with ourselves, you can find us on YouTube. You can obviously send the questions across through to us in the chat if you're watching us on TKS, but we appreciate it. Chaps, what a week. Chelsea and unbeaten in two. Let's look at the positives. Unbeaten in two games. When's the last time we did that? I haven't done that in 2 months. It's all going to come to a head, though, at the weekend when we inevitably get pummeled 7-0 by Manchester City. Let's start at last weekend's game. Chelsea 2, Nottingham Forest 2. Initial thoughts from myself was disappointing. I'm not going to lie. It was a very disappointing result. And I think we'll go into it a little bit more detail. But what we'll do is we'll start with resident caveman, Mr. Positive himself, Charlie Harris. What was your takeaway from the game itself for the draw at the weekend?
It's a countdown, isn't it now? It's a countdown to the end, of the season. We've got a new manager, apparently, although he still hasn't been announced officially. Everyone else seems to know where he farts, but no one else seems to know when he's going to sign. Positives: Chalobah, Hall. That's about it. Sterling, maybe. But it's just it's a frustrating. It's almost we just have to look now to the future, don't we? There's no sort of present day Chelsea. I couldn't care less what we do in the next 3 games. It makes no relevance to our season. I fully expect us to not score. I fully expect us to lose at least 2 or 3-0 most of these matches. The Man City game on Sunday, I'm fully expecting them to beat us about 6 or 7, to be honest. They're just to win the league. It is what it is. There we go.
Temba, it was a bizarre game at the weekend. We had 77% possession. It's typical Chelsea. We dominated possession, but the XG is, I don't know how much you read into XG in some of this, but Nottingham Forest, they had 2 XG and ours was 1.3. So were we lucky to scrape that, get that 2-2 all? I thought after half time, Lampard made the tactical changes. He had Trevor Chalobah doing the inverted runs, and it looked like Chelsea were trying to, take advantage of that and get back into the game, and they did get it back into the game. Managed to lead 2-1, but then 5 minutes later, just slipshod, disgusting defending once again.
Yeah, well, I think tactically, in terms of how we played, we didn't look very good because, again, Conor Gallagher started. I didn't quite understand where he was going with that. I thought Nottingham Forest just showed, again, like any other team, that they wanted it more than us. I think we only showed in moments of brilliance of the fact that we do have players on 250k a week and 300k a week, but apart from that, they honestly, I thought, looked the better team. I think they look more hungry, and I can't really say we look more hungry in many games this season. I think that's one of the main issues. But then against the small teams, we don't look like we know what we're doing tactically. So again, that falls on the manager. So it was good to actually see a score. I actually predicted a 2-2. I thought, both defenses would be crap and it would just be an end-to-end game, which it was. But as a standard of Chelsea, really, you should be controlling a game like that. And yet again, we showed why we've been terrible this season.
Well, we did control it. We controlled possession 77%. It's just, again, it's standard Chelsea for the last however long. We did nothing with it, really. It was good to see Raheem Sterling, getting on the score sheet. I think that'll do him a world of confidence just in time for the end of the season, which is just when you want to hit form. But hopefully he might move it on to the new season and hopefully, have that confidence there. Let's try and talk about some of the positives that we can take away from the game. We mentioned it earlier, Charlie, Trevor Chalobah, I think you said it was one of his best games in a Chelsea shirt.
Yeah, and it could be one of his last games in Chelsea. And this is what's so frustrating about it, is that these players who now come into form, and half of them want to leave. I don't think Chalobah wants to leave, but I think we're in this complete mess that we're in, and these are the sort of players. Apparently, I don't understand FFP, and you know me, I'm not a bookworm. I'm not the sort of bloke who's going to research into it too much. But from my understanding, you get more points or something from selling your homegrown talent on FFP or something like that. So the likes of Chalobah, apparently, he's going to go. But
He
yeah,
he could be on the firing block. He could be, but I think what Pochettino, when he comes in, he's got kind of got to evaluate his back line. If you look at it, we've got Fofana. Silva's going to stay for another season, as confirmed by his agent / wife, Belle Silva. And then you've got Badiashile, Fofana, and then you've got Levi Colwill, who's already going to, like, the rumour saying that he's going to stay in the team. That's another player who's a homegrown player that we've got in that kind of area. And I think I think you did some research into the financial fair play in terms of homegrown players, but I'm fairly certain that Chelsea are going to have to make a choice about which players they do keep and which they don't. James and Chilwell signed long-term contracts very, very recently, and obviously that leads to Mason Mount being one of those people, potentially Conor Gallagher as well. Even though Conor Gallagher's on a smaller contract in comparison to some of the overpaid stars, shall we say.
Yeah.
So is that how it works, like in terms of like homegrown players? How do you know how specifically how it works, or is it simply just a case of we just need to get as much wage bill, much off the wage bill as much as we possibly can?
It's recorded as, it's sort of like a business account, right? If you buy something for 80 pound and you sell it for 100, you made a 20 pound profit. Whereas if you already had that thing and just sold it off for 100 pound, you made a 100 pound profit. So because we've had these players since youth days, it obviously on the account books it shows up as instant
Nothing.
profit, and that helps us align with FFP.
So does that mean we have to sell Hakim Ziyech for 100 million and Christian Pulisic for 120 million, and then we get mad profit, and then we can keep all the players that we want to keep?
Yeah, it depends. I'm not sure exactly how much Chelsea have to recoup before June the 31st. I'm not exactly sure on the numbers, or June the 30th, which June the 30th, yeah. I'm not exactly sure what the actual figures are, but obviously the big player sales in terms of profit, because we haven't been doing well anyway, so I don't see us flipping any of our, let's say, players we've signed for any more than we actually originally signed them for.
Yeah.
So the next best is your academy. You look at years gone by where we got like the likes of Mark Gurhey. He didn't play a single game for Chelsea, and we sold him for 20 million.
Yeah.
If you remember the Lukaku transfer, we managed to ship out like 7 or 8 players, and basically that paid for his actual transfer fee. Yeah. So I think in the sense of FFP, it'll be the same thing where we try to get rid of our highest assets at Cobham. Maybe you'll see Gallagher maybe go for 40 million, maybe Mason Mount, if he goes, that's another 60 million there. And then maybe Chalobah or something, another 20 million. And that might enable us to actually get Ziyech, Pulisic, whoever else off the wage bill, and allow us still to spend some money during that window with 2 or 3 key additions and still comply with FFP.
It's like we need to have. I mean, it's clear that we do need to improve. Like if you look to the game against Forest, with Kovacic going down injured in the first half, we brought in Ruben Loftus-Cheek, and then we looked to the bench. There was no other centre midfielders that was available to come in. Could we potentially see, not just necessarily from the first team, but also players shipping out from the under-21s? So could we see players like Mason Burstow potentially going? In your opinion?
The problem is that Mason Burstow hasn't got first team football, so it would probably be the likes of Ampadu again, but he's been in Serie A, so maybe Levi Colwill, who I actually think has a good shout of getting into the team, but I think if they didn't want to ship off the likes of Mount and maybe even Gallagher, if Pochettino wanted to keep him, he's the next player who they'll probably be able to get a good fee out of. He's young English centre-back, left-footed. He's playing well for Brighton at the moment. And, he is a huge prospect. So, again, like with Mark Gurhey, he didn't play a minute for Chelsea. They sold him for 20 million. And they're set to get a few add-ons, I believe it was reported. Yeah,
I think there's
so
an add-on. There's a 20%, we get a percentage of the sale, and I think there's also a buyback in there as well that we included, which is what we should have done for Fikayo Tomori. Let's face it.
Yeah, smart
Um,
business. That was smart
you can
business.
Can someone explain this to me? I just listened to what you said. You've sold that player that I hadn't really heard of, as if he's like the next best thing since sliced bread, and then we're going to go and sell him. I don't. This guy that you were just talking about for 20 million quid.
Levi Cole.
Yeah,
Levi Cole,
and
the
you
one on
said,
loan
"Oh
at
yeah, he's a
Brighton."
great player, but it's great business if we sell him for 20 million quid." I don't get
No,
that.
he's talking. No, I think he was talking about in terms of balancing the books. I personally don't think Levi Colwell would be sold. I think of the two, Colwell would stay and Chalobah would go.
Balancing the books surely is getting rid of these players who have been here far too long on big contracts and trying to find someone who will buy them. That's the key.
If Pulisic was bought for 62 million, what do you think it's
Where
going
did
to be
you get
sold
that
for?
number from? 62 million.
Yeah, it's like
Well, that
57,
was a reported
58.
transfer fee.
That's his transfer fee. That's what he's bought for.
Okay, so we sold Pulisic for 62 million. Ziyech 40 million.
No. That's the thing, Charlie. We're not going to get 62 million for him.
Why?
Do you really
Because he's
think
not
a
worth
club's
that.
going to come in and pay 62 million for Christian Pulisic?
I wouldn't personally, but you're saying 60. So where's this money coming from? Where's this 62 million? I don't.
So
How is that
62 million.
how is that a transfer fee?
So
when no one's going to pay it. It's like me trying to sell my caravan for £1 million when it's worth
Charlie,
a tenner.
Chelsea went to Borussia Dortmund and said, Christian Pulisic, we want him. He's cracking. He's lighting up the league. What we want him, and we're going to pay you 62 million. And we're like, Borussia Dortmund's like, thank you very much. We're going to go buy Haaland with that for £10. So they basically got Pulisic that massive fee for Christian Pulisic. Our outlay is 62 million. Now what we need to do is we need to recover as much of that 62 million as we possibly can in the sale of Christian Pulisic. But the problem is we're not going to get 62 million. I can't see somebody like Real Madrid coming in or Atletico Madrid for coming in for 60 million, something along those lines. It's just not going to happen. He's not that type of player. He's young, so there's kind of that on his side. So we have that. So we might be able to retain some sort of fee. He's a captain of the USA team, whatever stock that has. But you potentially looking at maybe half of that. And what that means is that's a 32 million loss in the grand scheme of things. So if you have an academy player that costs nothing to develop, they can technically count as nothing, and then you sell them for 30 million. Or if we end up selling Mason Mount is probably going to accrue the most money. So that's why he's probably linked away, and you're probably going to get something like 60, 70 million. So that's why Mount is the most likely player to leave.
Yeah, but the thing is, you're talking in riddles, because ultimately, if you sell Mount, you've got to replace him. Yeah, so you can sell him for 60 million,
that's what I agree
and then you've
with.
got to replace this guy and then you don't know who you're going to buy, and you might end up buying a Pulisic, right? And then we're stuck with this guy who's on loads of money, and then you're worrying about how much we're going to sell him for. You're creating a problem that you don't need.
Disagree.
You've got this guy. He's here. He's willing to stay. Give him the money.
I don't disagree. However, what you need to look at is we are in a very bad situation where we are. It's not a seller's market; it's a buyer's market at the moment now. So all these clubs that we need to sell players before June 30th, and clubs probably haven't even decided who you're going to keep, who they haven't, who's going to go out on loan, what gaps they need to fill. If Chelsea said, hey, we've got these players that we want to sell to you, say, oh, we will sell you Hakim Ziyech for 25 million. They're like, well, we don't want to spend 25 million on him. We like him, but we'll give you 12 because we know you need to recover your costs, but we'll give you 12 million. So clubs are deliberately, they're going to undervalue players, even though I don't particularly rate Hakim Ziyech or Christian Pulisic. Yeah. They will deliberately undervalue players. And the more you undervalue players, the more players you have to sell. Whereas in the grand scheme of things, if you do replace Mount, if you do sell Mount, I agree with you, Charlie. I'd rather Mount stay. Like, I want to make that apparent. But Mount is going to command the highest amount. So if you can sell Mount for 70, 80 million to Liverpool or something, which is very, very likely to happen, if you can sell that amount, you then have less risk on selling those other players at a loss.
Yeah, because Mount's always been on your books since the start, so he's not a loss in terms of anything. It's instant profit. He's been there since academy days. All you've been paying is his wages. You have not been paying another club the transfer fee. because if you know how transfer fees work these days, a lot of them are amortized, which means the player fee and the wages are paid together like over a certain amount of years. So say like we bought Pulisic for 62 million. We'll be paying Borussia Dortmund over 5 years, £12 million or 12.2, whatever it equals to per year. So that's how it looks on the books. Like he's £12.2 million plus his wages on top on our books. So once we clear that off over a 3-4 year period or whatever it is, it looks much better financially for Chelsea, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I understand that, but the point I'm trying to make as well is these players, Pulisic and Ziyech, you just want them off the books. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant how much we sell them for sometimes.
Yeah, I agree.
Just get
I
rid of them.
agree.
I don't care.
That's
Even if it's 10 million quid or even if it's a,
Charlie,
a fiver or something, it doesn't matter because
that.
the wages are so high.
We're not disputing that for getting the 10 million and getting them off the books. Like, I think if we can get 10 million for each, just take it. But the problem is if we've got a shortfall of before we can start spending any money, I'm using this as a round figure, and we need to sell 100 million pounds worth of transfers before we can even think about buying. You know, you're then going to have to look, if you're selling players for 10 million, you then have to sell 10 of those players to get. Yes, we have a bloated squad, but then you have to look at buying players in as well. It's a tricky situation, and I don't disagree. I'd rather we can keep Mount. Gallagher, he's kind of one of those. Like, he'd be good as a squad player, and he fits the homegrown quota in that scenario. But yeah, it's tricky. But like, we've fallen foul FFP. Like, I think I was very naive back in January when I was like, oh, look at us signing players over 9-year deals. It makes sense. We're paying less. It's incredibly smart. But then in the very immediate short term, we've got to sell players before we can even start to rethink about bringing in the centre midfielder, the goalkeeper. We've got to get rid of Kepa. We've got to get rid of Mendy as well. There's a lot of players that we need to get out the door, and they're not going to command a high fee. Like, do you think Kepa's going to get anywhere near the 72 million? Absolutely not. We'd be lucky if we got 15. And we'd be very, very lucky.
And he's on so much money. This is the other problem. It's trying to find someone who's going to buy him. And this is going to be the biggest problem in the summer. Everyone's going, Chelsea, we need 3 players, and we're going to win the Premier League. And
no one's saying that.
We just
literally,
need to get rid of.
I've not spoken to a single person that said we're going to win the Premier League.
Pochettino sort of hinted, he just needs 3 players, and he's there almost, right? And then he goes, we need to offload 10 players. Well, it's easier said than done. We can't. These players, someone's got to buy them. It's like selling a house. You've got to. Someone's got to buy that house. And they've only got a limited period of time to buy it, and they've got to have the money to buy it as well. And they've got to want to buy these players. It's not just
the foreign clubs. All these clubs will lowball their offers. They all will.
Yeah.
Chelsea in a very precarious position. Like, Hakim Ziyech on paper is probably worth about 20 million, but you just know clubs will go in and bid 8.
Yeah, because they know.
They know exactly. And the problem with it, the more players that you have, we need to get rid of, because the squad is so bloated, and the fact that we've got like a separate 2 different change rooms is ridiculous just to get it back under. So that's why, Dale saying in the comments here, Tem saying in the comments, that's why the academy players, they're the first ones. Like the players like Harvey Vale, you might not get loads for him, but you could probably get 10 million for him. Do you know what I mean? From a club that's coming up from the Championship, maybe. It's just, I don't want us to sell Mount, but it could be possible. But there's players that I'd rather keep in the short term, in the long term, like players like Lewis Hall. Like, I want to see like Lewis Hall be given a chance, because he finally got a chance after weeks of us saying, why isn't he playing? And he performed quite well at the weekend. Yeah. Like, was he incredible? Yeah, he was comfortable. Was he incredible? No, but for somebody that's 18 years old, and he doesn't look out of place. Whereas you put, 24-year-old Cucurella, and he's running around like a headless chicken with this positioning. Anyway, we digress. But yeah, it's an incredibly tricky situation. But
can I just add to that? I think that's why it's more important for our recruitment team now to look for diamonds in the rough, and why this Pochettino thing needs to work, because we've kind of left ourselves in a situation where we've gone for young players now. We're trimming the squad down, so it needs to work. It needs sort of a good recruitment team and a manager who's good at working with young players, because that's the only way now I think we get back to the top with with spending limited money.
Yeah, and I very rarely agree with what Bowley does. I really don't. But the fact that he's looked at Pochettino and the fact that there's been weeks in the build-up, like we'll talk about Pochettino. We may as well just move on to Pochettino now. Obviously, he's heavily rumored now. Like it's been announced. BBC Sport have announced it, so they're also last to announce something before it goes official. But Pochettino is very, very likely to come in to be Chelsea manager. And Pochettino, Bowley spent 3 weeks, vetting and trying to find the right fit. I think Potter came in very, very quickly. I think Tuchel was a snap decision. I think I read somewhere this week as well that Bowley's learned from his mistakes. He probably should have let Tuchel stay, even if it was till the end of the season, which I would agree with. And, Tuchel probably would have finished much higher than what we did now. But he's, they're doing the due diligence thing. But he has got experience working with younger squads and, making a team. We look at the Tottenham team. Yes, Charlie, Tottenham didn't win anything. We get it. But the overall caliber and quality in the Chelsea squad exceeds that Tottenham team that he developed. So does that not mean that he'd be in a better position to push for more with this younger squad that he's going to inherit with the players like Levy Cole or with Mudryk, who's still relatively raw? Admittedly, it's been 15 games and he's not scored yet. It's getting a bit worrying. But, could that be something that he might develop over the summer? I know you're very anti-Pochettino to begin with, Charlie, but how are you feeling now? You were initially.
I was initially just the Tottenham connection, but I've done a bit of research into him the last few days, because I get bored. And I was, at Southampton, he had Mane, Luke Shaw, Ward-Prowse, Lambert, Wanyama, Klein. These are players that he brought on. They ended up doing quite well out of that.
Harry Kane,
team.
Son.
Eventually, of course, Harry Kane, Son. Even Eric Dyer. But I think with Pochettino, look, he probably is with this. If they can get rid of some of these guys and they can leave it with 20, 25 players who are the young guys and bring in a few, but they need to bring in, I've said it before, they need to bring in leaders and they need to bring in English leaders through that spine, that team, in order to get that team to run. And that's it's as simple as.
The English, so you want an English lead spine of players to lead the team.
Yeah.
So what do you mean by that?
I would argue, and I know everyone's going to laugh at me about this, but Jordan Pickford, Jordan Henderson, and Harry Kane, if you brought those three into this team, we'd probably win the league. Just based upon the leadership qualities that they have, and that sort of thing. It's nothing to do with their playing ability. Obviously, Kane's a brilliant player. The other two, it's more about the ability to lead the team. And I truly believe that that's what we're missing. Every single team who wins the Premier League, they have an English spine. Man City, even now, Kyle Walker, Jack Grealish, Phil Foden, Calvin Phillips. They've got them everywhere. These guys, I think
Calvin Phillips is a bit of a push, but I get where you're coming from. I really do. However, I don't think Chelsea going into the market for Jordan Pickford, and for Jordan Henderson. Jordan Henderson, the only reason he's playing for Liverpool is because of injuries in their midfield, and because of how's it pronounced? Bajcetic. An 18-year-old Spanish player came with him, was outplayed him, and Klopp was playing him. Yes, Henderson runs about and does some shouting, but Henderson, I don't think he's again. It's going to be another player that's going to command a high fee. If Henderson's going to leave Liverpool, I don't think he's going to leave to come to Chelsea. And I think if Henderson was to ever leave, he'd go to Sunderland if they were promoted. Henderson is not. I think Henderson is regression. It's not progression. And I don't think Henderson's a player that Pochettino would want. Pochettino likes to work with younger players. And if you're looking at shoring up that midfield, like you're looking at a younger midfield that is able to, boss that midfield. And he's, it's like what Dale says in the comments, he's 33, 34 years old. It doesn't make any sense for me to like Henderson. I don't understand. I mean, Tem, I don't know what your opinion on this, but I can't understand why it would need to be players like that when there's clearly other options out there that could potentially be on cheaper wages, that could develop with the team as opposed to just be stopgaps. Because I really don't think Jordan Henderson and Jordan Pickford is the team, the players that are going to come in and transform Chelsea and get us winning the Premier League title.
Yeah, I think you could possibly make players at Chelsea who could be captains. Like you said, your Chilwells, maybe not James because he's not fit every game, but vice captain, I could certainly see that. You know, even Mason Mount, when he plays, if he's going to stay, why couldn't he be future captain? You know, Raheem Sterling, players like that, they're English winners as well. But I think most importantly, you need a good manager. I think that is the most important captain. If you saw how different Lampard was and Tuchel was when they were here, you know, it was a magnitude of a difference. And I think managers more are the most important thing about a club. I think they set the precedent of, you know, this is how we play, this is what we're going to do. And, you know, sorry, I got my words mixed up. Basically, they are the captain. You know, they dictate everything that happens. You know, everything runs through the manager. You know, Man City could pull out a different 11 and it will still play the same as the first 11, and that just shows because Pep Guardiola is that good, and he knows how to make everyone play that way. Maybe not so much Jurgen Klopp because he likes quite small squads. So if his starting 11 isn't playing, you know, there is a drop in quality. Sorry, and
got to sort that screensaver out.
Like you saw the likes of Klopp, Jose, Arsene Wenger, all of these. They made the captain. They showed you know, they built that spine of if I'm not here one game or I don't know, we're not playing well one game. These are the players you need to rely on. But I essentially run the team, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and I agree with that. But I will say one thing as well. Can I just butt in there?
Yeah, go on.
Sorry. Pep, Klopp, Sir Alex, Jose, Arsene, every single one of them chose an English spine. Every single one of them. Jose did it with us, John Terry, Frank Lampard.
Roy Keane,
right?
Irish.
Irish, but
Drogba, Czech.
No, okay, okay. But the point is, we had Ashley Cole. We Joe Cole. We bought English, if you like. You know, we bought these English players probably for a bit overpriced.
Joao Felix.
Yeah, okay. Some of them were letdowns. You know, Calvin Phillips may never work at Man City, but if you look at even Arsene Wenger, and he was known to just play French players, he still had Tony Adams. Yeah. He still had David Seaman in goal. Yeah, he still had Ian Wright up top. You know, he still had that English spine. There was something about that.
Yeah, there is something about that. However, that is a very antiquated view because that was in the 90s and it's 2023. Like, I appreciate where you're coming from. But
why does Pep still do it then? Because we all know that we all know that there's better central midfielders than Calvin Phillips out there that he could have bought. But he's gone for him. There's probably better wingers than Jack Grealish, you know, for 100 million. But he's gone for him. Do you see what I mean? There's a reason for that, clearly.
The City captain's Gundogan.
Yeah, he's the captain. Okay.
Yeah.
But the point is, he still buys overpriced English players. You know, we all know that English players you pay a little bit more for, right?
Yeah.
And he still buys them, right? Guardiola. He still buys these players, you know?
Yeah, and it's because it's exactly. There's a quota. You have to have a quota. A certain number of English players in the squad. It's why. Like, I think if that rule didn't exist and you gave Pep Guardiola carte blanche to spend whatever he wants, I don't necessarily think he'd buy all English just because they're the best options available. I really don't.
I'm not saying they're the best available, but if you look at Real Madrid and Barcelona, they all have a lot of these random Spanish players who don't necessarily get in the Spanish team. You know, they're players that are sort of, you know, bench warmers, these guys who can just come on, but they understand what Madrid is. They've been through that system. Same with Barcelona. And I think there's something in that. I really do. Or there's something in at least being present in Spain. They might have come from Mallorca or whatever, but they've come in, they sit on the bench, they come on every now and then. You don't really see them much. but you know, there's something in that. I think. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't quite agree because again, if you look at Barcelona's best players over the years and um, Real Madrid's best players over the years, I don't think they've all been Spanish. You know, the likes
No.
of Messi, Neymar, Suarez, Ronaldo, Marcelo. Well, Ramos, you could say, is one, but Courtois. You know, even now you see their team is Rudiger, Benzema. You know,
I'm not
Vinicius.
expecting Jordan Pickford to come in and build a statue outside Stamford Bridge. The point, it's not about that. The point is to give this team at the moment. This team have no personality. This squad, do they? That's why we don't win anything, right? Because they just sit there. There's 33 individual players, and everyone goes, "Oh, individual players. What are we going to do about it?" Well, bring in some personality. Bring in leaders. Bring in people. And the best ones are these English guys because they play in the Premier League. They understand. They've been brought up with this, and they understand. They don't have to be the best players. They don't have to play every week. To be honest, they just have to be in the dressing room.
I think one of the things I was just been looking at is as you were talking, I was looking at like previous, teams of the years gone by. And yes, whilst Arsene Wenger did have Tony Adams, he had Tony Adams until 2002, and then there's not been an English captain since. And
No, no, it's
he
not
was
important.
manager
The
until.
captain's not important, but he always had English players through that spine. He had Ashley Cole. He had,
But that's
Yeah,
because you
you're right.
have to. You have to. That's
I,
why.
I think actually to caveat to this point, I'm sure we were one of the first teams who fielded
We
out
were.
we
foreign
were.
We
We
were
were
the
we were
first
the
team.
first. All foreign
Yeah.
11. I remember 2000 and probably before the millennium. I think
I think it's
1999, something like
99. Yeah.
that. You
Yeah,
know, we fielded
and
all.
and as well, I think Arsenal in like 2012 had like a entire team like with the subs bench as well without an English player on there,
Yeah.
and then they started trying to do something about it because we did it like 2 games in a row, I think, where we had like one English player in the whole squad as well, and so yeah, it probably was to help the national team because you saw the likes of Spain and France, get so much success from their big clubs doing well. So and Germany, so they probably thought, let's put it as a rule in terms of you've got to fill more quota to get the English national team, doing well again.
Yeah. Yeah. We digress a little bit here. I mean, I think one thing I wanted to bring up as well is Charlie, you mentioned Enzo. Obviously Enzo's had a very, very we're talking about centre midfielders and building a spine. Like Enzo Fernandez is British record transfer fee. He's going to be here for the foreseeable future. But we also need to bring in players. Kovacic is likely on the way out, despite only 3 weeks saying he left Chelsea. Why would they ever leave? Shock horror. We need to bring players in, but you haven't been particularly impressed by Enzo Fernandez as of late.
No, but it's not being impressed. I just don't think he's. I just don't. I don't. He's a midfield. He's okay. I'm not. It's not a negative. It's just saying that I don't know one player that we bought in the last year who's actually improved at Chelsea, and hopefully Pochettino can improve. Let's hope that this guy can come in and do that because that's basically what they need. They've all basically become worse, all of them. And Enzo's one of them. I'm sorry,
I think
against Forest he was awful. I'm not gonna.
Yeah,
I
it didn't
don't
have
have
his
any.
best game, but I don't think he's looked terrible in any games. Yeah, he's looked pedestrian in some games, but there's games where he has been decent. But I think it's just because the whole squad, their heads have dropped, and I think if you've got nothing to play for, it's very difficult to boost morale and do that. If you look at players at other clubs, you've got nothing to play. Look at all the relegation teams; they want to play, but there's nothing really to play for Chelsea at the moment. We're not going to get relegated. We're not going to get Europe. There's nothing really. And of course, players are going to drop mentally. They're on the beach at the moment. And do you really think they really care about playing City the weekend and United the week after and then being at home against
Well, they should
Newcastle?
do because we paid
But
£100 million for this player, and we're paying him
they
that
should,
much money.
I
He
agree
should. He
100%.
should have the professionalism to actually
They
say,
should.
actually, you know what?
But
I want to test myself against Kevin De Bruyne. I want to
Yep.
test myself against Rodri or whoever, right? And I
Mhm.
want to damn well win that match, and I want to
Yep.
be the man of the match. Why
Yep.
are these players? I'm sorry, like if that's me on the even at 11 aside, even if I know that we're getting relegated to the man versus fat 30 stone plus division. I don't care. I will still try to win that match. Do you see what I mean? I just don't get it.
I completely
These
understand.
are professional sportsmen.
I completely understand, but when they get into, if you've been in a situation, well, let's just take football out of the equation, because I think if all three of us were to ever play for Chelsea, we would live every pass, every tackle, every roar of the crowd. We would be all up for it. But some of these players, the majority of the players, it is a job. And if you think about a time when you've been in a job where things aren't been going well, it is very, very difficult to bring yourself out of that situation yourself. And that's why I think what Tem is saying is so key, is having the captain or the manager in this case coming in. I don't think Potter was the one. I don't think he galvanised the team. Lampard's not particularly galvanising the team. And hopefully, with Pochettino coming in this scenario and taking this younger squad, it's going to be something that's going to galvanise the squad. But I think as it stands in the moment now, I can't blame them, because even I can't be bothered watching these games. I'm going
And I
to,
think it's
but it's
something
a slog.
Can I just add? I think it's something we all don't understand as fans. We see every year with a different team where people are like, "Oh, they're on the beach," and I think it's one of those things you probably wouldn't be able to understand unless you're a footballer yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is one of those things. Like, we absolutely, if we were signed by Chelsea tomorrow, we would be grateful for 30 seconds on the pitch. Let's face it, we all would. But at the end of the day, these are all, they are professional sportsmen. They're paid handsomely to do so, but they're not. It's like what Pochettino said. He's got that famous quote that I've been reading everywhere. It's like, players aren't paid to play football; they're paid to train. And if they're coming in, they're performing well in training. That's what they're paid to do.
Can you ever remember John Terry and Frank Lampard and Didier Drogba when
having shit games? Yeah,
I remember them having shit games.
Yeah.
I can't remember all three of them having shit
Definitely.
games all at once though, and then dropping
Yeah.
tools for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I'd say
AVB.
John Terry has, in the bigger games, he often let Chelsea down.
Wow.
Yeah,
I definitely agree with that.
yeah, and against Barcelona he did. There's no doubt about that. But we won, so it didn't matter. But obviously we lost. We blame it on him. But the point, and in Moscow, whatever. But the point is, he turned up. And during that match, and the thing is, the reason he did that, fella, it wasn't because he was lazy and bored. It was because he actually had too much passion. Almost, it was a silly thing to do, but it was actually he was so in the mold of the game that he thought that was a good idea, and it wasn't, obviously. But it was to do with the way his brain was running at the time. It's nothing to do with it's the opposite actually of what these guys did. These guys wouldn't even think about doing something like that. They'd rather that guy just run past them and score a goal. That's the difference,
Yeah, but I think they actually did show up in the tough games. I think it's more the games that we should have won, like where maybe it was hard to motivate them or get them up for it. But you saw against Dortmund, we were actually up for it. Real Madrid, we were up for it until we conceded. I think in the big games, everyone has that. You saw it with Drogba; he was one of the best examples of it.
Big game player.
Big game comes along. He put on 10 out of 10, his best boots on. Best. Rolled down his socks and played his heart out against maybe the likes of Sunderland. He wouldn't do so well. Maybe motivation. I think it's something that someone I was watching said when it comes to elite sports, the biggest thing that separates the best to the average is mentality.
And this season, it's clear. It's like what Dale says, but wouldn't say they're used to not winning. And 10 games this season have been awful. Mentality and enthusiasm is probably an all-time low. They probably want this season to be over. They really do. That's probably why I can't blame them. They got nothing to play for. It's like I told you. Are you looking forward to watching us play against City on Sunday? Am I looking forward to discussing another loss? No, not really. But I'm going to sit there and watch it because we love Chelsea. It's one of those things. Anyway, we digress. Let's try and move towards kind of like targets and who potentially we need people to come in for. So we know the caveat with 3 big positions that we need to bring in. I think we can all agree: goalkeeper, centre midfield, and striker is being the key thing here. Obviously, Charlie's picking Jordan Henderson for some bizarre reason, and Jordan Pickford for a less bizarre reason, and Harry Kane for very, very obvious reasons. But Tembo, in your opinion, if we're looking at a spine of a team, you want to do three of the players that are available. There's free agents going in the summer. Ilkay Gundogan's available on a free. Yuri Tielemans is available on a free. Who else is available on a free? There's quite a few players that are going on a free in the Premier League. I can't remember. There was another one. Ruben Neves, he's another player. In your opinion, who do you think we need to move in?
In terms of goalkeeper, I'm actually not sure whatsoever. I'm a bit lost. I don't think there's a huge goalkeeper market out there unless we can do what we did with Petr Cech and do some good scouting, or Thibaut Courtois or something along those lines, where to find a diamond in the rough. I don't know about goalkeeper because, again, there's a lot that are already tied down to their clubs. So, again, it would just have to be down to good scouting. In terms of midfield, I would like to see Declan Rice, but I think it's going to be way too much money. I can't see him coming. I think he'll probably go to Arsenal. Jordan put a good one out. Diogo Costa at Porto. I've heard good things about him, but I don't know if he's good enough to start for Chelsea. I've not really seen much of him at all this season.
What is he, a midfielder?
No, he's a goalkeeper.
Oh, well.
He's a fairly young player. He's the first choice in the Portuguese team. He's been playing for Porto now for the last few seasons as first choice as well. He's an option. Like, by all means, his name's often touted around, but I don't think he's particularly huge as well. I think going from Kepa 6'2", I think I'm just looking at Diogo Costa. He's 6'2". I'm not saying you need to have somebody that's 6'10" like Costa or Pentillimon in goal, but you want somebody who's got that commanding presence. And we saw at the weekend, you can have a commanding presence, but fluff your lines twice, like Eduard Mendy did, and he still wants paying 175 million a week.
Yeah, I wouldn't be quite happy with him. Or Onana is another name I've been hearing about.
Is that Inter Milan?
Yeah, Inter Milan, Onana. I think he's a bit like Kepa. He has a bit of a bozo moment in him as well, and a bit like Mendy as well. In terms of a striker, I'm again not quite sure who would fit in well at Chelsea. I think Vlahovic, as a back-to-goal player, would probably do well with the likes of our wingers who like to sort of drift into space, and he could probably play them in. I think we need that kind of striker. Saying that, did any of you see Lukaku's goal this weekend?
No, I don't watch Serie A, and he's dead to me.
That's the thing. He is quite good.
When he turns up, Lukaku.
Yeah,
when he turns up, he's incredible.
He's the elephant in the room at the moment this summer because
literally
he's literally on the biggest wage packet for everyone, and and Inter Milan can't afford him. So it makes perfect sense to give him another go. It's a lazy option, but it works. It works for all parties.
It could, if we can't bring somebody in that we want to bring in, like say for example we can't shift Lukaku, it just means players like Armando Broja's got to then go out.
We can't have him rotting on the bench. He's the amount of
problem
money
is if you have. Yeah, I know it's one of those things that if nobody's going to come in for Lukaku, but Broja's available as well, he's not going to be third choice, and he is a homegrown player, and what that means is might have to sell him.
I think Broja stays as a number 2. I think it will all depend on Lukaku. I think if he goes out, we will get a new striker. Otherwise, he will stay and he'll become part of that. But I can't see him working under Pochettino. With the amount of distance that's covered by his players, I don't see Lukaku putting in that hard effort, honestly, at all.
I was reading up on some of their drills that they've got like 45 seconds to run. Is it 150 meters, and then they have 15 seconds rest, and then they've got to run an extra 6.5, so 156 meters, and then they get 15 seconds rest, then 165, and so on and so forth, and that's their training. Lukaku's going to die. He's going to need to go on oxygen tank if that's the case. But
the strange thing is, apparently he was one of the quickest players at Chelsea when he was here, and he was actually quite fit. Problem with him, I don't know if he has good dietitians or something, or just.
Well, he He does, because didn't they, when he went to Inter Milan from United, didn't they find a condition with him and his medical that completely changed it? And he did drop some size. But the problem is he's now he's back up to that kind of like big size. And yeah, you can be big, but the problem is he's lost some of his pace and his first touch, and it's
He's
just
one of them players who he relies so heavily on his brain that if his head's not in the right place, he loses the plot. If his head's in the right place, he's one of the best strikers in Europe. But the problem is it's getting his head in the right place. And the thing is, if you force him to do something, it's like anything in life. If you force someone to do something, and bearing in mind, I don't think he wants to play for Chelsea next season. He's just obliged to because he signed a contract a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
No one else can afford to pay his wages, so he's not going to turn up realistically.
And I always think he's a player who doesn't play for his size, if you get what I mean. He doesn't utilize his size enough. He's almost a player, I think, that should have been born small and skinny in a sense of how he likes to play. He likes to, he often likes to drift out wide, come inside and take a shot.
Yeah.
But if you see a guy of his stature, really, he should be holding off defenders, like the way you saw against Arsenal when he first came back. Arsenal away.
But who knows?
Pablo
Who
Mari
knows? He might want to play for Pochettino. He might come in and have a discussion with Pochettino. Might like what he hears. You never know. He might turn up. We'll soon find out at the end of the season what happens. I still fly the flag for Ivan Toney, but it all depends on that betting situation. But we shall see what kind of happens in that scenario. I mean, if Lukaku can go out, Ivan Toney coming in and having Broja as his backup choice would be fantastic. But the more that we were discussing that the more I was thinking of like goalkeepers that might be available. And the more I lean to just, getting Jordan Pickford in, because there's no one. There is no keeper you think, do you know what? He's the next star, the next up and comer. There isn't anybody unless we find like a diamond in the rough, like a Petr Cech from Rennes again. I can't see us bringing in somebody that's going to be the ideal person, unfortunately. Let's.
Can I just interrupt you there? The problem with goalkeepers over the years for the big clubs has often been they buy from these relegation battle teams, and they don't. It's basically a completely different job to doing the job at the top end of the table. That job requires total concentration, and it's more about what you can do with your feet. Because you only really have to use your hands a couple of times in the game, but it's all about concentration, reading the game.
Yeah.
But the thing is with Pickford, because he's played for England at that level, and because he's played for Everton at the bottom level, I think he's proven. I really do, and I think he's a leader. I think he's actually really good. And Man United made that mistake. They've made that mistake over and over. But you can say all that, but
Harry Maguire.
The other one is but the other one is Martinez, that Villa goalie. He's the other one who's done it at that top level. And also at the, being in a relegation battle and had to save penalties and, had to, jump around a bit,
I mean, I would be okay with Martinez coming in. He's definitely got a character. He's got personality. He's fairly big. He can save shots. He's won the World Cup. He's a winner. He's a proven winner. Martinez coming to be decent. But then there's also Dortmund's keeper who performed quite well against Chelsea that Dale brought up as well. It's tricky, like the goalkeeper situation. I think you make a valid point, Charlie, like maybe bringing in somebody. Look what happened with Aaron Ramsdale. Aaron Ramsdale's a goalkeeper that was playing for teams that got relegated 2 seasons in a row, and he comes in to Arsenal and they paid 25 million for him or something like that, and everyone was poo-pooing it, and he's come in and he's performed quite well. So
probably one of the best Premier League goalkeepers at the moment.
He's definitely up there. He's definitely up there. We'll pivot away from that and let's look towards the weekend. Chelsea versus Manchester City. We're at home, aren't we? So
No, we're away.
We're away. Okay, so
it's their last home game of the season as well, and they can win the league if they beat us.
Tremendous.
I mean, it's almost it's a brilliant weekend to look forward to, isn't it?
I cannot wait. I'm so glad we're playing football on Sunday that we can't. Hang on, what time is kickoff? Is it like thingy?
4. I think it's 4, isn't it?
Phil for me while I find out. I'm just going to see what time my game is on Sunday. Talk amongst
Yeah,
yourselves.
when are we playing? I thought we were playing Man United. So is that next week?
Nah, that's next Thursday, I think.
Yeah, 4 o'clock it is. Yeah.
Our game at the weekend. This is just for the benefit of people watching at home and on TKS TV. We all play 11 aside on Sundays. Our kickoff is 2 p.m. So we'll get back in time to watch Man City win the league. Let's talk. What do we? God, what do we do? I think we're all predicting we're going to get our pants pulled down. Do we potentially see it being like a 4-0? 5-0? Do you think we can kind of keep it respectable, or is Erling Haaland going to absolutely rip Thiago Silva to shreds?
I'll go first. I think it will be a Man City party. It will be a blue day, very blue day. The different shade of blue for us, but yeah, yeah. Anyone going there is there to celebrate a City win, and Arsenal not winning the title. Sadly, you won't be celebrating a Chelsea goal or Chelsea win. So yeah, 3-0 minimum.
Yeah,
I don't even think.
I don't think we'll give them a game. I think it's one of those. It's a bit similar to when. Do you remember we won that league a few years ago when we had? Was it Wigan? No, it was Villa, wasn't it? Last game of the season, or Wigan, or something like that. We beat them about 8-0.
8-0 Villa. Yeah,
it'll be one of those. I think. Yeah.
Did we do it with Villa as well?
Yeah, that was.
Yeah,
we
but that
beat
wasn't
them
to win the league,
7-1 that season, and then we beat them 8-0 2 seasons after. That was a night game, actually. I remember Torres scored the first goal, and I think if you remember Lucas Piazon, he missed a penalty.
Yeah,
that game.
I remember Lucas Piazon.
Oscar scored 2 goals as well, I think. Yeah. But
Good.
I think
I always enjoy beating Villa. I always really enjoy it.
Yeah. I liked when Lampard scored 4 past him. That was brilliant.
Mm.
What do you reckon, Tom? Do you reckon we're going there and
I reckon
pull off,
if you
an extraordinary result?
I am positive. I think it's well established that I am an exceptionally positive person when it comes to Chelsea. I'm trying to look for the silver lining in the situation. But if you, Charlie, were to say to me, Tom, I've got you a ticket to watch Chelsea Man City at the weekend, we'll sack off Sunday football and we'll go, we'll head up there, we'll have a few train beers. I would rather rip my own arm off than go and watch that game because if I went to that game, I would not be going to watch Chelsea. I'd be going to watch Man City. And, we are essentially, we're fodder at that game. There's no point to us even. Like you can put anybody in that field. It doesn't matter who Man City play at the weekend. I think Dale does make a valid point. It depends on the Champions League tie, but I'm not too sure what it means. Like, does he expect if they beat Madrid, then they'll take the foot off the gas?
I
don't think they would.
I really don't think it matters.
I think they're already through. I think mentally they're already through that game. I think they're kind of lucky enough to just see off the season now. I think they already know and see. I think Guardiola's that good. He's probably already planned, the Champions League final and beating us next weekend and thinking, Real Madrid, we will definitely get through. I don't think
the FA Cup final is a formality.
Yeah,
I think they'll do the treble.
I don't know.
I'm actually not sure about that.
I don't think so. I have to agree with Tem. I don't think that's a formality. I think of all the games, I think that's probably the one that's going to beat, because I think United will want to ruin the treble. I really do. I think they'd want to stop that massively because that's their thing. They're the only team to win the treble. They don't want to share that, that honour with, Man City. I think that game will be very, very, very interesting. Could I see City winning Champions League? Yes. I don't want them to, but could I see them doing that? Yes. But I don't think the FA Cup finals are formality. I think we could potentially see United turn up that day.
And just to add to Dale's comment, I think the only way Man City don't go through is something happens to Haaland. He will definitely score that game, 2 or 3. So yeah, I think they will just be looking at our fixture this weekend.
I mean, you got Rudiger there.
No, he's not good. Well, he is world class. Let me rephrase that. He is world class.
He's world class.
They kept him fairly quiet in the home. Relatively quiet.
Yeah, but then you have De Bruyne, Mahrez, Grealish.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They can keep him quiet, but someone else will always be there. Problem with
Yeah.
us is we don't. Even if you keep Havertz quiet, there's no one else. Doesn't matter. You know.
Yeah, send on Datro Fofana. That'll do. I was just one thing. I really miss Rudiger. I really do. I just miss him. Like watching him play, he was like he was a player that would. I think in this season he would be a player that would be helping to try and galvanise the team. I think he's a leader, and I think we're missing that type of player this year. But yeah, I miss Rudiger. Anyway, I digress. So, Tem, you think it's going to be what 3-0
Minimum.
minimum? Okay, Charlie.
Yeah, I think probably 5 or 6. I think it'll be one of them games at 5 or 6-0 probably.
Yeah.
That's not a it doesn't matter. It's just one of them.
Yeah, you know when you see on Sky Sports, I don't know if you guys ever see Vincent Kompany scoring against Leicester to win the league. I think it'll be one of those games. It'll be on the next Sky Sports advert of Man City winning the league. You'll see Haaland, I don't know, roll past Kepa or something.
You'll see a load of Chelsea fans with blow up Champions League trophies, like
yeah.
the last time.
Yeah, that's another thing I think people are overseeing. Man City could actually start catching us up in terms of trophies. I think they're vastly getting really close. They've already taken us over in terms of league titles. And if they win the Champions League, they have a lot of bragging rights to be a big club.
Yeah, I'd say so. But I think one thing would go in there, strike against them, I'd say, is potentially if they do win the treble, would Pep stay?
Maybe one more season. I don't think he'll stay for 3-4 more years.
But if we look at all the managers that are available, I think the only manager realistically can come in and fill kind of Pep's shoes in terms of like potential is probably the Zerbi at the moment. That kind of like that managers up and come in. I don't think there's many. I don't think there's many like purely world class managers about at the moment. I really don't. I think Pep's on a different level. Yeah, but
I don't think he's got anywhere else to go.
What if he gets bored?
The money doesn't bore him. He gets paid too much at that club, and that's the real.
We all want to retire eventually, just because you don't.
No, but it's only PSG, for example.
Yeah, they could look at
Arteta. That sort of money, and Arteta's probably the natural replacement. To be honest, it'll be a bit like
or Kompany.
It'll be Kompany or Arteta, a bit like Liverpool did in the 60s. With what was his name, Shankly, and what was the other guy's name?
Who cares? It's Liverpool.
No one cares.
It's Liverpool. There's no team I care less about than Liverpool Football Club. Anyway, boys, we're approaching that hour here. I appreciate you joining me. I didn't give my prediction. I think it's going to be 8-2 to Chelsea. No, I'm joking. It's going to be, I reckon, 4-1. It's going to be a pants pull down kind of situation. I think Haaland's going to get to 40 goals in this season, I think, and he's going to score 2 or 3 against us. But I appreciate you both for joining me. We'll be back next week. We'll review Chelsea's drubbing to Manchester City, and we look forward to the 2 games next week as well, Manchester United, and then also the last home game of the season against Newcastle United. Thank you very much for watching us on YouTube. Please, if you can click that subscribe button and like, and thank you very much for watching us on TKS TV. Much appreciated, and we will see you all next week. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you. Cheers.